Alrighty then, folks, as requested, I'm just going to have a really quick run through of some of the sort of principles we covered in the last session where we hung out. So, as you can see here I've got my finished and textured imp, kind of quasi-demon-y type guy. Hey, you should do some bad things. Remember that kind of really these stages you don't need to be getting into textural stuff. We just need base forms, and we can actually do most of this without any of the final. We can be pushing final sculpture on. I trimmed up the back, and it's ready to start working with. As another concession, I did fill in the mouth area with a blank plate. What you want to be conscious of with this, and I've probably not done a great job of it myself, but placing that blank just at the return of the lip. So I think, you know, at some point I might want to resculpt some of this so that that lip has a little bit of a kind of a return, so it kind of moves back and up around the outside. I can kind of maybe demonstrate that a little bit now with a tiny little bit of downstand load. I want the lips to kind of pull away and back. If I drop this down to a more lower sub-div level, I should be able to make some. No, I can't. So I might have to do this on a lower res one, but just kind of we want that kind of flow back so that it doesn't look jarring when the teeth are actually placed in there. I can run through a little bit of that next time, but really the principles of what we're doing I will run through here. So the first step essentially would be to make a reduced core. That is going to look a little something like this. Not the cleanest looking thing, but it needs to extend out past the back of our where our mould will be, and this will re-engage and register with the mould, and the mould can kind of sit around this space, and we can fill and inject the empty space. The core essentially manages how much material we use in our sculpture. If I pop both of those on together and do this, you can kind of see that that's kind of the lineup where we're at here. Now if I subtract the core from the skin, you can see there that visually I've got a nice controlled amount of material, and that would be a minimal use of kind of silicone rubber. Something that's worth being aware of, I did remove the ears because the amount of rubber that's going to be going to those ears is so minimal. It would be wild to try and print from that. So that's our first step, to take the core out from the center of our mold. We will then be working on extending out from this and creating a mold jacket, or at least the principle of a mold jacket. Now what that will do, that will print all of our detail on as we bolt the core and the mold jacket together through here. They'll fit together like this. Yeah, so you can see that the edge of the jacket will register with that core and hold it in place strongly whilst we inject. So what we should see here, if I just get rid of some of this, no, it's not working. I did the wrong layer, didn't I? So if I do something like this, you can kind of see the core sits inside the jacket. We're going to use the skin to negatively boolean out the inside of that jacket, and everything will kind of work out quite nicely. I'll show you those moves kind of right at the end. But let's go from the start here. So I'm going to start with the skin. Again, a little bit of work's been done here to remove the horns and fill in the space of that mouth. For the purpose of this, I'm going to start a brand new thing, so I'm going to duplicate that guy out. And the moves that we followed are relatively straightforward. So that first step, we want to create a reduced core. So let's duplicate that again. So now these are two examples of the same thing sat inside one another. I'm going to turn on transparency. And I'm going to come down to deformation. And this is where I think our best bet is going to be by grabbing this inflate button and just scaling it back. You can see as one moved away from the inside, it started to descale. Ah, what's going on here, guys? This looks all gross. It's because we're trying to scale something that is quite highly detailed. Yeah. So what we are going to do before we do that is reduce the geometry on one of these. Just so that I'm happy, I know which one I'm doing. I'm just going to relabel this one detail and this one rename core. Okay, so the core is the one we're going to reduce. So I'm going to hop into solo mode for a second so I can only see that one. And I'm going to go through a couple of little processes here. You should all be familiar with this. It's a Z remesh, and we are just going to reduce the active points from 3.2 million here to something quite low, you know, in the 50s, 20s, 30s, something along those lines. So I've turned off adapt. I've turned on. Why have I turned on double? Let's try that again. Turned off adapt. I've turned on half. I'm not going to worry about creases. I'm not going to worry about edges. I'm going to hit Z remesh. That normally takes a little while. If you're using the computers at uni, that will take significantly longer, and they will all start to sound like an aircraft taking off. I'm quite proud that my little computer here is still being quite settled. It's starting to get a little bit noisier. But that one's done. So you can see that's kind of reducing the poly counts from 3 million to 130,000, and it's much more controllable. And if I come down to my deformation menu now and then try and, you can see that that jankiness is still there, but it's significantly less. So we're going to do that a couple more times. Second time you do a Z remesh, it should be much easier. It's dealing with a much lower poly count, and everything's a bit better organised. It doesn't need to do the calculations for the flow of the topology here. Maybe one more here. It's going to take me down to like 6,000. That feels good to me. Now, not so tool, deformation. And I think this is still going to do that. It's still going to get a bit janky in places. You can see where edges meet. So you can see where at the edge of the lip and at the edge of the ear, that's getting a little bit jank. But I'm okay with it. We're going to counteract a little bit of that by giving some of this a smooth, because I don't really need all of this detail on here. I'm going to cut most of the ears off, but I just want to avoid some of those creases. So a little smooth, and we'll give that another try. That's much nicer. We're avoiding almost all of it around the jaw. And again, the ears are getting taken apart anyway. So now that I've done that, I can pop out of solo mode, and you can see now that in my transparency, there is, if I turn transparency off, you can see that during that Z remesh, we've had a bit of like a homogenization of the shape. That's great, really nice place to be. It's still fitting the same volume more or less. I'm going to turn transparency on and ghost mode just so that I can see that internal form a little bit better. And I'm going to come to inflate and work my way downwards. And now I'm just going to watch the edges. So here's a really nice example here. You can see that I've got a good bit of distance there, and that edge is going to be relatively even all the way around. I'm going to push that a smidge further. There is a plugin you can get for ZBrush called Precision Extract, which is kind of useful for this. You can extract to a very specific amount. I found that the inflate is just a little less clunky. Let's turn transparency and ghost off. My core one is the one that's moved, so if I hide the detail and then hover over this one, I've got a different one turned on. Here we go. So yeah, I've got a little bit of jank there that I can tidy up quite easily with a smooth. The ears I'm going to slice off. I'm going to do that right now. So a really good way for cutting is hold, Control and Shift, which will bring up the selection menu. The knife curve is a pretty solid one. You can basically just draw out any kind of line. Where the shaded area is the direction of the cut. And if you just press Alt on your way through, it'll pop a little curve in. If you double tap Alt, it'll do a really hard edged, like a straight angle. But we didn't need that. Oh, a couple of little holes there, but nothing to worry about just yet. We can just close those ones later. What I also want to do at this stage is extend this back area. So I'm going to grab a mask lasso. Mask lasso, just draw around that. And then move. Let's get this to a point where I can see what I'm doing. And you can see there's a little bit of crashing going on, but all of that can be finessed out later on. All I want is for this core to extend backwards. If I want to fit some of that, I can just shrink it out a little bit. And I can also use my move tool to kind of move any big polys around and just get clear of that skin. Remember, the bit that you see the outline here is going to be the general thickness of the silicone skin that we're going to be putting on this thing. But there you go, I've got a little core ready, pretty much ready to go. Now, to give you an idea of how that's going to look, if I turn on, I've got live boolean turned on here. If I just tap this dude and come inside, and I can check for any wobbles or discrepancies. Like, I'm a little thin there, so I'm going to want to adjust that. But I don't think I've got it crashing through the skin in any places. And if I'm really concerned, there's you chuck transparency back on, you can just have a little look around and see whether it lines up anywhere. But that looks fine to me. So that's the core done. This next step is relatively straightforward. It's the same thing, just the opposite. I'm going to duplicate that one as well and rename it into MOULD Part 1. Okay. Again, similar deal. I don't want to inflate this with all of this detail, so I am going to jump in and do a quick Z remesher on this. So half Z remesher. Also, Z remeshing brings your point count way down and makes it much easier for the computer to manage the levels of geometry that you're going to be playing with. Waiting for that to happen again. Should be quick. Should be quick. Be quick. 20 seconds. That was quick. Uno más. I'm not going to go all the way down to like 6,000. I just want this to be a little bit easier to manage. Oh, I did it. 10 seconds. All right. So if I just pop into solo mode, you can see there, I've lost a little bit of detail, but nothing major. What I'm going to do now is switch down here, back into that deformation menu, and I am going to, back to inflate. We're just going to go the opposite way to what we went before, and I'm going to stretch it that big, and he's starting to look like he's getting inflated. And I've still got transparency turned on. Is Ghost going to make it any easier? It's not. So you can see there that I'm getting a reasonable skin on this. Let's go inflate a little more. I think that's pretty good for me. So transparency off. It's not a great looking thing, is it? We've still got some geometry kicking around there, so what I might do is a little dynamesh on that now that it's a good size. A lot of that can be smoothed out. We don't need to see it. It looks like Yoda. Pesky autosaves. And you can do this. I'd like you to kind of have a little bit of a play around with different approaches for this, but what essentially we've got now are the 3 parts that we need. I'd like you all to have a bit of a go at this by the time we get in next time. So I've got my detail pass, I've got my mold part 1 and my core. If I toggle that to be removed from there, you can see that the core comes out. If I move this down a little bit and then toggle that, you can see that the inside of my mould, this would be the thing that we print, has all of the detail that we need. And then if I turn my core on, the core will sit in exactly the right spot. Looking at that in transparency mode, you can see everything kind of fits in. That's pretty much all I want you to have a little bit of a play at. If you are feeling brave, you can start to investigate how we might cut this up in a way that it can open and close, and we can remove our piece from it. We also need to start considering how we kind of account for that mouth gap. But for the next session, that's all I require you to do. Sorry it took a little bit longer to get this video to you guys. Enjoy having fun. See you on Thursday.